whatever. She could eat anytime. I used to be able to eat any time of day or night. Now that's my son's, and I wake up in the morning, I'm like, where's all the cereal? All right, so let's start. We're gonna, I guess if there's no questions about the test, let's do old business. There's no old business. New business is pretty chill. Okay, so new business is, I think the next content assignment isn't due until the 12th. We've got the test, or the paper though, the big food paper. So we're gonna talk about that, and I'm gonna screen share an example of the paper. And then I'll upload an example of the paper after class. Is that cool? I did get to put the study guide up. So I hope that helps somewhat, but I'll post an example of the paper. And obviously you can't use anything from the paper, but I feel like people still want to see how the formatting is laid out and how people maybe did it, you know, in a successful way before. So I will do that, and I'll show you that now. But the next discussion is my favorite discussion, I believe, after this chapter on stratification, and that's how people are ranked in society. That's what we're going to talk about, right? And the next chapter, though, is on race, and that's my favorite chapter. Race is race relations, work with minority majority stuff. I was doing diversity consulting 25 years ago at Augsburg College in Minneapolis, where we'd go into police departments and school districts, and we'd go into police departments and tell them how to do their job. So what's going on now is nothing new, something I was doing 20 years ago. And imagine how well that goes over, you know, not always received the best, and sometimes received really well. Actually, my experience was not received well by people who've been on the force for a long time, received well by people who are newer. But that was just, you know, the work that I did in those scenarios. I've done a lot of other work in regards to race relations. I think the diversity symposium is happening right now on campus. Everybody got an email from Joyce yesterday assuring us that she is committed to diversity, and CSU is. But of course, you know, my views on that are we need to commit even more to students of color and to diversity, because that's what our campus, that's the best thing about a college campus. There's people from all over the world. So you get the most awesome, that's why I like being, that's why I wish I was on campus, really, just because so many different people. So we're going to talk about race in the next chapter. So the discussion is Jane Elliott. She is an amazing woman who's done, now, most students never heard of Jane Elliott before this last year. But now they're talking to her about BLM and race, and it's like her and Dr. Cornel West, people that they go to lots. So these videos are absolutely hands down, and it's not due until, like, you know, November and the first couple weeks, second week, I think. But get on it now. Watch the couple of videos now, and let's have an awesome discussion. And I know that you got reminded by the GTAs of the discussion stuff the other day, but you got to have a post a week out or earlier. So right now, today, tomorrow, we've got a little breathing room. So take that breathing room and go watch the videos. They're awesome. The Eye of the Storm, the blue-eyed, brown-eyed study she did, you've probably heard of. Then she does a thing with adults. I think I even have, if I don't have another one, I'm going to add another one that's a really good one where she's being interviewed. But she's fantastic. My favorite thing and it's like one of the discussions I love to get into with students. So anyway, that's coming up. There's no harm in doing the discussions early and often, because those are like, gimme points. Those are easy points. That's right. And so just get on top of that. All right, so let's see if I can screen share the paper here. Let's get this in the background. Where is it? See if it counts it. See if it's like not a tab, so it won't do it. There it is. Oh, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna. Can you see this? You see the paper? All right, great. Sorry, I rely on your head shakes, because otherwise it really is like I'm talking to myself in a room. We played at the drive-in, did I tell you that? Where nobody gets any amps and it's all quiet, like, and everything is in-ear monitors and everything is all electric because it's got to go out to the cars. So if you go up to the stage, it was just like me ranting to myself, singing, and everybody else like pretending to play. That's how I feel like classes this semester. So I need to see your faces. Good. Sociology food essay. You know, sometimes people include a little intro here. You know, I don't think there's any harm in that. Just a brief intro. And then you've got Life original cereal or Kraft mac and cheese. And then in the other thing, you've got Annie's mac and cheese, right? So when we compare these side by side, it's not that the organic stuff is not going to have ingredients. It's just what type of ingredients, right? You know, so Yoplait yogurt, Heinz tomato ketchup, Annie's organic ketchup. Can people screw up ketchup? They can. Good Lord. Why? It's so simple, but they can. So anyway, here it is. So then, right, still part one, what you do is you take in one of these ingredients, aspartame. Now this person wrote, I think, a little bit long of a paragraph, right? You could write a little less, you know, but it's a good paragraph. It's got a citation, red number 40, right? That's there. They said on livingstrong.com they need to cite that in the same way as their other stuff. Yellow 5, partially hydrogenated oil, from a citation from the Mayo Clinic. High fructose, BHT. Oh boy. So BHT is a preservative. Anyway, they picked some real winners here. Annatto extract, there you go. Organic beet juice, tapioca syrup. So now we're getting to some kind of rounded stuff, not just the chemically stuff. But you see here, high fructose corn syrup. I guess annatto is a good one. Extracted from the seed coat of annatto. It's a natural food color replacement of synthesized food dyes. In toxicity studies, it compares with other food dye options. There is no promoting effective tumors. Was judged to have a non-observed adverse effect level. That seems to me like to be a good little couple sentences or whatever. So you don't have to do something huge, but like this organic beet juice, same thing. So does that make sense now? A little bit more. You've got the tables, and now you've got the little individual ingredients. And they could even have numbered these individual ingredients, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or if you don't, we can actually count them, which is good. That's a good thing. So there it is. All right, now we move down to the next part of the paper, and part 2 is just that comparative food analysis, right? Researching the differences between conventionally grown, organically grown, genetically modified can be confusing jaunt through cost, pesticide. Oh, jaunt. I like the word jaunt. Can be a confusing jaunt, pesticide residue, nutritional value, and the overall good of the environment. It's often difficult to tell if studies are based on favor of conventional farming methods because of the strong link to American culture. This is a great intro paragraph here. Don't use this paragraph. Don't use any of this. But you got to find a way to jump into it, and you only have 2 pages, and notice it's single-spaced. Now, I think you don't really need all these spaces. So one comment that I would make here is, why the space between paragraphs? You know, and one thing that I could show you if I showed you papers that I'm not a fan of would be like more spacing, like even more spacing between the comparative food analysis, you know? So take that out of your paper. Just straight up 2 pages for the 2 sections, 2 and 3, and your lists, and keep that tight. And if you want to go over by a little bit, you know my rule. And my rule is, always do a little more, because most people are going to do a little less, right? I think that's a good rule of thumb. So this person talks about Food Inc. They've got a citation here. You know, if you're going to have paragraphs, almost every paragraph for part 2 should have a citation. They don't really here, but you're going to be dropping facts. You're going to be spitting hot food fire, and talking about things, you know, where you're going to need a citation. So some people that write this paper, or some folks that get in like 100 level soc, maybe you're a senior and you're taking it and you're like, whatever. But a lot of people are not. And so people worry about having too many citations. I mean, if you've got one in every sentence, yeah. But your scholarly work, where you're referencing other people's work, is going to have plenty of citations. This here needs more citations. I haven't read the body of it here, but I think that it's always important when you're using other people's work of any kind to do that, right? The most popular are those that confer herbicide tolerance, insect resistance, or both traits together. That's a direct quote. You can be paraphrasing things, as you know, and still need to use a citation, because even if you're paraphrasing, that's not your information, right? That didn't come from you or your source or whatever. So anything that's not, you know, pulled directly out of your brain, or your thoughts or your opinions, which are okay in this paper as well, needs to be cited. So here's another good one, and then they wrap it up. And because the other one started up here, right, you know, we'll look at all of that. But my thought is, you know, and I know I mentioned it before, but creative spacing sucks. Like, you know, whether that's if this thing is due and I think the font is 11, most people maybe require 12. I think I have 11. I'm weird. I like odd numbers. Whatever. I don't care. The point is, don't put it in 12. Don't put it in 14. You know what happens when you put it in 14? It's like magic, right? Like, yeah, I wrote enough. But see, the only thing I'm going to do is just like highlight that and shrink it down. And you'll be, oh, yeah, right? So just do the required amount and then, you know, keep it real and legit. Now, again, I would not put these spaces here. You know, all you need to do is indent the next paragraph. You don't need to have, you know, them all spaced out like that. They finish. They even write a little conclusion. Maybe your conclusion is at the very end of part 2. Maybe you kind of wrap up the whole paper with a little paragraph. I think that's a good idea. You never want to have less. So then all of a sudden, now you start to, yeah, but Jason, this thing said 7 sources. Yeah, but you got all those 10 food sources, right? You're likely going to find more than 7 sources. So look at this. Woo, that's for real. And that's what it's going to look like. And I know that this is a big paper, and I don't want to bum people out. So that's why we have section 3. Sorry if I'm hurting your eyes this morning. And this would be social movements. Maybe social movements in food is this paper, right? It's like, maybe it's farm safety, farm welfare movement, farm animal welfare movement. So they talk about social movements in food, where we're going to be able to talk about like whatever. You could do social movements in food. You could do whatever it is. I know people have a lot of ideas. So that's the layout of the paper. Yeah, thumbs up. I'm only seeing like 6 faces this morning. Does that give you a better idea? Okay. Well, maybe you're already like part of the way through it. But right now, you know that I'm not into violent metaphors. And so instead of saying right now is the time you need to crush this paper, I'll say right now is the time you need to write this paper mindfully, or something boring like that. Or go get them, Tiger. I don't know. Just do something like that. But right now we got a break before a bunch of other stuff is due and a bunch of in the next exam. And that's why I built this pocket. This is our pocket. This is, if you're the Bears, hey, 5-0. Oh, what is better on a Sunday when you're from Illinois than the Bears winning and the Packers losing? Well, I don't know, the Packers losing by how much they lost by? That's what's better. Anyway, so find your pocket, find your gap, find the running hole, find your in, look for your, I don't know what I'm doing, moose? I have no idea what that means. Just take the time right now because you've got time. Research the paper. And if you're one of those people like me where you're like, starting it is the hardest thing in the world. Like when the dorms, you know, dorm life until last year is like everybody's doors are open. I was my freshman year, it was like, hey, what's up, everybody? Obviously, right? I'm a social person. But that was not good for getting work done. So I actually had to belt myself to my chair. I'm not kidding. I actually took a belt and belted myself to my chair so I could sit there because I'm so ADD for more than 15 minutes and write a paper. But that was the night before. So if you're stressing about this, you can knock out a third of it. That whole first section, you complete it by just like writing ingredients down and doing little ingredient research. Super easy, you know, so don't let it be an intimidating thing. Even though I know that writing papers is intimidating. You already know that we're here to help. Honestly, Yua and Verena are 2 of the all-stars, rock stars of our entire department. Like I have a lot of GTAs, but I can tell you right now that they are on top of it. And if you've dealt with either one of them, you know that they're on top of it. Like just, yeah, they're some of my favorite people. So reach out to them. Reach out to me now that I am back in action, Jackson. Okay, get that paper done. All right, so now you've seen that. Are there any questions moving forward? I had some questions about the last content assignment, and Verena was really helpful in caps. I will assume that's really helpful. Yeah, Allie, she's awesome. I don't know. I love the social department. You know, I all the time I'm like major in social, major in social, major in social. But that's because these people are like, they're super diverse. They love everybody. The 80-year-olds in the department were marching when they were 15 for, I guarantee you everybody in this department is like dedicated to human rights, equal rights. It's awesome. And they're okay with weird people like me. So anyway, there's a plug for the social department. I think I haven't done that since since I recommended an Instapot at the beginning of the semester. So yeah, highly recommend the social department as a major or even a minor. All right, we're on module 7 this week. Yep, module 7, chapter 7, and then it'll get wonky, like either 8 is race or 9, but then we skip one. And I love this. Actually, I don't love this textbook. I really like this textbook. It is one of the social textbook for 100 that I've liked the most. That being said, all of them have the worst chapter on the environment, right? And this is not a political statement, but seeing as the judge that they want to slam into the Supreme Court said last week that climate change is a matter of public opinion, and we all know that gravity is not a matter of public opinion. You would never say that about gravity. You would never say that about science. For her to say that about climate change is disappointing, to say the least, and completely ignorant on the other end of the scale. So let's just, I always like take my Soc 220 class, my environmental social class, and I really beef up the chapter for us on the environment. So that might be like 17 or something, but right now we're still going through the numbers in order. Does that make sense, everybody? Cool. I love all these chapters in the book from here on out. I think it's module 7, but we're in week 9. Is this week 9? I think so. Something like that. I missed a week last. It could be week 10. I have no idea. It could be 2019. No, it's not, but I wish it was. Top hat questions. Okay, so top hat questions are located in the chapter 2 folder. They don't show, like, everything when it got imported in the wonkiest way, because chapter 2 now has a lot of my questions to the end of the semester. So dig around and find them. I uncovered or asked like 5 questions this morning. So I think it's in a folder called chapter 2. I would hope that Top Hat would just be like, show you the most recent question at the top with a bright blinking light. But if that's not the case, I'll pass that on to the people whose job it is to try and keep me using their product by telling them how they can make their product better. Anyway, I did open up the questions. All right, let me screen share again, and let's get to a little bit of this business. I'd like to talk about chapter 7. If there's no more questions, I don't see any more questions, so I'm just checking in. Everything's pretty chill right now, like I said. Got 32 people this morning. Let's do a screen share. Here we go. All right. Morning, Storm. Storm just got his braces off yesterday, everybody. Yay! Yeah, I know. It was a long, long road, but not as long and brutal as when I had braces. And they used to put them on with like a wooden thing and a mallet because the back bands went all the way around your teeth. I'm not kidding. They used to hammer just right through your head when they were putting on braces. Things are so much easier today. You wonder why old people are like, back in my day, I'm only 47 and stuff was way more brutal than it is nowadays. All right. Social stratification. How many of you, little show of hands, read Animal Farm in high school or junior high or something like that? Okay. Yeah, it looks like a decent amount of people, or there's only, well, half of the 6 people that are showing. I don't know, 3 people. But generally speaking, you have to read it. And so kind of move on up here. I'm going to give I'll give the quick rundown, the internet rundown of Animal Farm. But right, the farm is functioning and the farmers aren't that nice and they're oppressing the animals, right? And so the animals decide to have a revolution. And sorry, I couldn't resist. And they take over, right? They replace the humans. And their whole idea is that if we had a farm run by animals, it would certainly be more equal, right? And we would all be on the same playing field. And so the pigs step in and the pigs decide that, just because we're good at that anyway, we'll be taking charge. And then once the pigs take charge, things kind of go downhill, right? The animals start disappearing. They start abusing the animals. And then they've really created what we're going to talk about. And that is a stratified society. Now, all cultures have some form of social stratification. So when we're talking about that, we're not just using Animal Farm as a metaphor for the United States and our culture and our system of stratification here. All systems or all cultures have some form of social stratification. All of them justify some form of inequality as right, as sort of the way it's got to be. So whether that's a class system like us or a caste system, I think we commonly think of India. Another one would be slavery. Slavery does still exist, unfortunately, in many places in the world. So, right, at first, the animals write up on a big board, then it's kind of like their ethos, right? Which is all animals are equal. So that's just the first part. And they don't have the second part until things start to go downhill. And then they paint it in there. But some animals are more equal than others. I think we can relate with that. And I think, yes, we do understand how it's a metaphor for society as well. All right. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? I mean, I'm a huge fan of historical pictures, especially as a sociologist. Like, I just like to see what were people wearing, how close would people stand, what would they, you know what I mean? Like so many things. Just that stairway, that's not in somebody's house. I know you know that now because I'm showing the Titanic, but can you imagine putting something like that in a boat? Like, let alone having a boat, something that humans build. Look at those propellers. I mean, I kind of get it, right? Like, I kind of get the idea of how they built that thing, and they're like, this cannot sink. I mean, I probably would have thought that. I wouldn't have said it out loud, probably. but look at how huge that is. And then a couple there, some folks in a lifeboat. So let's look at this through a sociological lens. See, this is where sociology, I love sociology. Fashion. Talk about fashion trends. Now that is a hat. This is not a hat. That's a hat. That's nice. I wonder if that's Molly Brown. I can't remember. Might be. All right, so women and children first. Let's make some sociological observations. I'll do a little rundown. You talk to me. You know how this works. 80% of the deaths on the Titanic were men. Okay. 60% of the first class tickets survived. 36% of the second class tickets survived, and 24% of the third class. Now, if you've watched the video, I've talked about this and you've seen it, but I just kind of want to do more of a live intro, you know, and a bit of lecturing throughout the course of the semester now, stuff like that. I know we've already got the videos. And and a reminder, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want some more instant notifications. I have had a few emails where people are like, I can't find it. I've got to go on there and dig for the videos. Not these, but the other ones, because these are more recent. So if you want, I guess, a way to know right away, you subscribe. I guess we could think, though, of the Titanic, like really, because our class system is like a ladder. Could be a teardrop, could be a ladder, but the idea of climbing the ladder. Well, if you look at the Titanic, this is actually how they were stratified, right? Like the first class tickets were on the top level. The next level was for the second class. The next level was for third class passengers. Below that was like people who worked there. Below that were like the bowels of the ship. And you know that at least those last two and maybe one of the other decks were like physically closed. People locked people in the bowels of the ship. So obviously one of the reasons that people survived is because of how that was stratified. So people that were more wealthy were on top. So another way to look at that is 40% of the first class passengers drowned, 64% of the second class, and 76% of the third class passengers drowned. You thought you'd be lucky to get a ticket to that thing and just get on the boat in the first place. Not so much. So when we talk about inequality, folks, like this is the reason that sociologists talk about it, because it just doesn't affect the way that people live. It affects whether people live at all, right? And that's a big deal. I mean, do we really think that do we really think that all the people that drowned were bad swimmers and that all the people that lived were good swimmers? I'm not trying to be facetious here, but it is not based on that, right? So as I stop sharing it for a minute, what do you think as far as that goes? What do you think about stratification? Is this like society today? Just reactions to that, because I guess the other piece is is not just where people survived, but my thought is, and we know this, and we're going to get into this in the next chapter as well, but we talked about inequality. We've really set the table now all semester long for all of this. So we know along the line, so right now I'm teaching a 400 level health and social inequalities class at CU Boulder. And the greatest indicator, right, for health is SES, socioeconomic status. It's not race, which is another big one. It's not gender, which is another big one. It's exactly what we're talking about here now. And so we know that when you're born, if you're in a low socioeconomic status, you'll live 5 years less. And then if you're a woman and a woman of color, you'll live 5 more years less. If I were to tell anybody in this class, that's 10 years, folks. I'm gonna get close ones. 10 years based on your socioeconomic status. If I were to say, how many people in here want 1 extra day in this life? You're gonna die tomorrow. How many people in here would be like, yeah. Now, if I told you, and I mean people in dominant culture, people of European descent, maybe that are male or female, if I told you you're going to die 5 years sooner than a person of color, people would lose their shit. They'd flip out. And if I told you a decade, you will live a decade less, 10 years less, don't get to see your kids grow, don't get to see it, right? All grandkids, all this stuff, something would be done, right? So this is what we're going to address here, because that is what it's like for a woman of color in a low socioeconomic status. You're going to live a decade less. You're going to die a decade sooner than people. And I think anybody here, if I gave you 30 extra seconds, you'd take it. That's just how human beings are. So talk about this. Stratification. Make some observations. 80% of the men drowned. I mean, there's a lot going on here sociologically. Any reactions to this, to any of that? And I'm going to sip my coffee for a minute because I've been talking.
Something that came to mind for me with the statistic of 80% of the men drowning is masculinity in our society, the way that men are encouraged to show emotion through anger rather than actually sad or processing things in ways that are helpful. Men are a lot more likely to deal with stress-related issues further down the road, which I've heard is why the life expectancy for men tends to be lower than women. And also, risk of suicide and violence and things like that for men because of the way we socialize boys in our culture. I just thought that was it seemed parallel.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. That's in 19 whatever. When did the Titanic sink? Anybody? Somebody Google it.
1912.
1912, thank you. That's 1912. So let's fast forward. 2020, okay? 108 years. I'm so good at math. No way. Anyway, so what do you think? Are 80% of the men going to die in 2020? Is it going to be women and children first in 2020? Why not? What are the gender? Because this is interesting. To me, that's one of the stats on that page that stands out. What do you think?
I mean, I might go so far as to say that at least 80% of men haven't really been taught or have the societal acceptance to really process emotions, and that is harmful. So it's not necessarily as much of the men are going to go out and die while the women and kids stay home, but it's parallel, Yeah. And there is also that perception of, men being the ones who do the physical work, Yeah. And it puts men at more risk of certain types of injuries and illnesses and things. So.
Yeah. What else about this 80% number? There's something that we got to in my class yesterday that I think is different from 1912 with the whole women and children first thing. What do you think? How would this be different in 2020? The ship's going down in 2020.
I feel like, in 1912, there's just socially, there's the standard, even if a lot of men would rather either try to live or die with their family, it's not really their choice at that point. So it's more of a group movement to this is what we're supposed to do, so this is what we're going to do. In 2020, it's, I don't know, I think there's a lot more flexibility in our standards for men, at least for a lot of the portions of younger generations. So we're not going to be oh, you didn't do your best if they didn't sacrifice themselves.
Right. Yeah. And there's more equality for people who identify as women, right? Somebody said that yesterday. They're women have more equality since 1912. So one of the things is we might not necessarily be saved. Right. And in 2020, I don't see this chivalry. Somebody yesterday said chivalry's dead. I don't know how many men just don't jump off that sucker or fill themselves in the lifeboats first. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. But this 80% of the men drowned and the lifeboats are filled with women and children in 1912? I don't know. Maybe it's a whole bunch of guys playing PS4 in the lifeboat, like, and everybody else is like, help, let us in. They're like, I don't know. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But obviously, yeah, we're talking about equality in emotional ways, equality in physical ways. Good. It's a deep-rooted problem in our society. Men's emotions, they show anger. They're deemed as dramatic. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the chapter on gender for sure, too. Any other, I believe it's similar today because now I feel like ways to success are through connections and wealthy people with connections, right? Talked a little bit about this society. So yeah, what about the boat stratification? Are we still a heavily stratified society? In what ways and what not? I don't know. What do you think? I know it's early, but it's not too early to smash the system of inequality through sociology, right? Never too early for that. Oh, shoot. All right, what do you think? Are things getting more equal? Or are things getting less equal? I mean, the questions I'm asking you about, do you even believe in, what do you think?
I was seeing if anyone else wanted to talk since I just keep talking, but I guess I'll talk. I definitely think we're stratified, especially given that, it's almost impossible to break out of the cycle of poverty because of the way our culture is structured. A quick example is the way that schools are funded through property taxes. So people in poorer neighborhoods receive less education and then are less likely to be able to go on higher education and actually break out of that cycle. So people who are poor to begin with are the ones who are more likely to end up being poor, and they don't have wealth to pass on to their families. And it's just this never-ending cycle. And that keeps people where they're at.
Yeah, and we have to understand that this is intentional, okay? Of course, Derrick Rose, right? Because I have a slide with Derrick Rose. Of course, Derrick Rose was able to go from, like the courts he was playing basketball on, people were shooting frequently in those neighborhoods. I mean, that's a daily occurrence. And yet he can go from literally nothing to having more than some people would in 10 lifetimes. So of course that's possible, but we're going to look at just how possible that movement is, right? Like, can you really pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do that if all the health statistics are against you, if you don't have food in your neighborhood, if you don't have good public transportation, if you don't have education that's accessible or that's as good as somebody else. So we start to see the ways in which not only are we stratified, but much of this is purposeful from the institution. Purposeful gender roles and oppression, purposeful race oppression, and purposeful oppression based on socioeconomic status. One thing that I can't really frankly understand as a sociologist is how a majority body of really, really poor folks continually support billionaire folks that jump into politics, especially when those billionaire folks have very little to do with them, care very little off across the board anyway about these people in economic terms or in survivability terms. Oftentimes people are interested in keeping their wealth and transmitting it. And of course, that's true for even those of us that don't have a lot of wealth. But when the deck has been stacked in favor of the things that this society or any given society purposefully deems more valuable, whether that's gender, whether that's race, whether that's a certain type of a job. And we're going to look at this in this chapter. That creates inequality. Yeah, cold country set up to benefit those on top, regardless of how negatively it affects those in the bottom. That's why the middle class is shrinking. Certainly we are seeing things, and you know that I'm not sitting here just preaching about equality. I have also said many times, I don't think it's going to be equal. That being said, when both of my hands are out of the Zoom screen and the inequality is like that much, we can do better. I mean, we honestly can do better. Look, we're one of the wealthiest nations in the world, and my state in California is going to burn because we're not the United States anymore. We're a blue state. You know, you need federal help, you need federal funds, you need people working together, you need these things happening for everybody. The inequality doesn't have to be so massive, but we're going to move in this chapter from the idea that we have in our head of that, like it's just set up for the rich and da-da-da-da, and we're going to really examine that. Like, because of course, there's a whole lot of things in between there that we can look at that are important. important things about poverty. Why is poverty potentially a positive thing for people? Like, what is intestinal fortitude? How do people build it? And how are people that are poor harder working and or more have more fortitude and are more resilient oftentimes than people of wealth and privilege? So again, I think these are really, really interesting questions to answer, and we're going to look at that. So if you haven't started to watch the video in chapter 7, please do. And this isn't going to be a chapter where we just complain about people who are rich, but what we are going to do is look at what are the conditions that we find ourselves in, why, and do people that have a great amount of wealth, does that have to be something that can't be shared or that can't be used to benefit society? Who is doing that? What cultures are more egalitarian? How can that not work, or how can that work for us? Anyway, I think we're going to look at a lot of interesting things. And of course, when we examine our own culture, we're not a culture of zero mobility. There are some cultures that are far more, I guess I would say, oppressive and or limited in their ability for us to do something. So, and I know that more recent generations are not attaining the higher level of education, or maybe making more even, or living as long now even, as our parents. So there's been some backtracking in ways, and as sociologists, what are the social conditions that make that so? How do we change that for people? And how do we make things more equal? Because when we talk about a system of stratification, we have to keep in mind, again, every culture has it. Every culture deems some sort of inequality as justifiable. And they go out of their way to justify it, really, to make it seem normal and to normalize it so that society, right, from a structural functionalist point of view, keeps working. From the conflict point of view, we're going to say, yeah, but that gap keeps growing. And so many people are living check to check to check. And obviously not everybody has access to the most amazing healthcare in the world, right? So what you might be facing in a pandemic as a person with the lowest or a lower socioeconomic status is not what you are going to be facing as somebody in the very highest levels of our stratified sort of culture. So anyway, any questions? I think I'll leave it there for today. Yesterday was my first day sort of back. So yeah, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Like I said, lots of positivity coming from the class. I know it's early, but we still have around 30 people that show, and this is being recorded. So I'll make sure to upload it tomorrow. No, wait, what day is today? Today, Tuesday. Yeah. Tomorrow, my sons go back to school in person. While the rates across the country are the highest that they've been, or approaching levels that we didn't even see in March. My sons are smart. They are capable. They know to wash their hands and keep their masks on. But I have to say, I'm happy that my students are doing it in college and that people are proving that we can figure out a way to do this. But it's going to be a whole nother ball game with elementary school, middle school, and high school. So I'm just thinking in the most positive way that I can, and I want you to do the same. So remember, gravity isn't an option, neither is climate change. That's and I've tried with people that are like, climate change isn't real. I've tried to suggest they go to a third-story window and open it and just, float away. But that's not going to happen because of gravity. So do that. I think the last day to register to vote in Colorado is my mom's birthday, October 26th. So make sure for Heidi, who was a teacher for 40 years and gave the best hugs. She taught first grade. Kind of frowned upon when you're a college teacher to give hugs, but not so much in first grade for reasons that I understand. So register to vote. You know what I saw the other day? Wow. I saw a video of at some school in the South in North Carolina, students on campus all marching with the school marching band behind them to a voting place on campus to vote. And it was hundreds and hundreds of people, diverse people, people of color, kids with giant belt buckles and boots, just college life. Everybody. This is our microcosm here on our campus. And so it was so cool because the Democratic muscle, not as swole as your teacher. I'm sorry. It's been going downhill. So to see how many people are voting and taking pride in that and doing their part, is that going to fix the world overnight? I digress. No, it will not. But it will make a huge difference. Local issues, state issues. How do you want Colorado to look, or whatever state you're voting for? So again, be good people and do good things and make sure you're out there being the best human being that you can be, because, that's huge. There's a ballot box by the Student Center for those who live on campus. It's behind it where the buses go. It is screwed into the ground. It's metal. And to my knowledge, there's no idiots standing there with AR-15s. Oh, I know, Jason. It's early to be calling people idiots. If you're standing at a polling place with a semi-automatic rifle, you deserve to be locked up. That is illegal. It's called voter intimidation. It's an actual law. So, of course, I said to Julie, let's take them to the school because it's quick and easy. And Julie heard that there might be people with guns protesting down at the courthouse in town. And so she wants to run the gauntlet, I guess, so that she can flip off people who are standing there intimidating people's votes. I have no idea. She's an activist and has a huge heart as well. So, but I think I'm going to drop mine off in the one of those 2 boxes on campus, because that's what I've done before. You can also vote at the Laurie Center. You can vote at the Laurie Center. You should be able to do that. Awesome. Good. Anyway, I guess enough with that for this morning. Enjoy the fall weather, everybody. It's getting chilly in the morning. So peace, be good people, and do good things. We'll just wrap it up that way. I'll see you on Thursday. Yeah, take care, everybody. And thanks for being such compassionate individuals with me. People appreciate that in their lives, no matter how old they are. And I appreciate that in my young years. See ya. Bye.